Okay. All right, Dr. Louderback, please go ahead and begin our time together with Dr. Revels.
Yes, thank you everyone for attending the Faculty Council HAWKTalk presentation series. This is our last presentation of the semester, and today we have Dr. Mia Revels. She is in the Science and Health Professions Department of Biology professor, and her presentation today is titled Northern Soft-White Owls in Oklahoma, Who Knew? A little bit of a background: when Dr. Revels began studying northern soft-white owls in Oklahoma, there were fewer than 10 documented records of the species for the state. Since that, she and her students have begun systematically capturing and banding them, and that number has quadrupled in the past 2 years due to those efforts. So join us today as we learn more about why these owls are so difficult to detect and other information about their activities. Again, Dr. Mia Revels, Northern Soft-White Owls in Oklahoma, Who Knew?
Thank you, Pamela. It's so great to be here talking to everyone about owls. It's one of my favorite things. I want to take a moment to credit Ken Coffin, who did the watercolor images that I used as backdrops in some of this presentation. I do have his name on there, but they're just so lovely. I like to say it out loud as well. It's the same Ken Coffin who does bird effects, so if you guys are familiar with that. Oh, that's not working either. I can't get the slide to progress, so maybe it's not working. I don't know why. Okay, turn it on. Oh. All right, technical difficulties.
Okay, it looks like you're going to have to use the forward arrows down here since it's in presentation mode. Sorry about that.
Okay.
All right.
Maybe. Okay, there we go.
Yay, all right.
There. So this is the cute version, the cute picture of the owl. They are very small owls. Most people are familiar with larger owls, barred owls, great horned owls, and northern saw-whet owls are smaller than screech owls, which are the smallest owls, we thought, in this part of our country, over in northeastern Oklahoma. And so they're very tiny, and the hand is there to give you that that comparison, that size comparison. Even though they're very small, they're very fierce predators of small rodents, bats. They hunt at night and primarily warm-blooded prey. So that's pretty much mammals for them to eat. And then here's a more realistic perched. They roost during the daytime, so they're active at night, migrating, foraging, whatever it is that the owls do. And then in the daytime, they find a real dense coniferous tree, usually, to roost in and rest until it gets dark again. So where do you find them? I wish they'd chosen 3 different colors instead of 3 different colors of blue. But up here, this purpley blue is, and also in the montane regions of the west, all the way down into Mexico, those are their year-round range. And so that sounds weird because we're talking about owl migration, and that's because this isn't a true migration. True migration is when the species is in one place during one part of the year and then moves to this other place during another part of the year. In this case, what we're talking about is a shift of some individuals while other individuals will just stay where they are year-round. The most likely to stay around would be territorial males. They want to hang on to those territories, and then probably older females as well. The shift, if it's possible, or if you don't have a reason to stay, makes conditions less harsh. So they have, they're very tiny, so they lose heat quickly, and they have to forage a lot to make up for that. So leaving and going south for the winter is a good thing to do if you can. So the next color of blue is labeled non-breeding. So that's one of the shifts where you more commonly will see saw-whet owls. And then Oklahoma is smack in the non-breeding scarce area. So they're not as likely to get that far south. And as I said, not all of the birds migrate. Now, so one of the reasons that people study these owls is because this is a weird kind of movement, right? So it's not the whole species moving, it's just some individuals. So it'd be really interesting to see which ones are the ones that are moving. You know, is it sex related? Is it age related? Is it weather related? Over the long term, is it climate related? And so those sorts of patterns can only be picked out if there are banding stations throughout the range. So that's one reason that people do it in general. There we go. Oh, what did I just do? Where's the forward arrow?
You're wrong.
This one?
Right
Okay.
there, yes.
All right. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go through this part fairly quickly. This is what we knew about northern saw-whet owls before we did our project. It's interesting. There's a lot of stories that are funny, but it's pretty brief because there aren't that many records of northern saw-whet owls in Oklahoma. And the format, that's dramatic owl. The format is that I put the year of the record at the top, and then most of the time, this one isn't actually in the same format, but usually then it's the date and the county and so on. Also, if you're like me and you don't know where every single county in Oklahoma is, I put this nice little map in the upper right-hand corner here that highlights the county in question, so you can kind of keep track of where we're talking about. This is a female, actually I don't know the sex of this particular individual, but it's an adult peeping out of a nest cavity. Now we don't think that they nest in Oklahoma. There was one record in 1925 that's not documented. We don't have any like physical evidence at all of this record. And the person who claimed to have northern saw-whet owl nest and eggs in Tulsa was an egg collector. So he bought and sold when it used to be legal, which it certainly is not legal anymore. And so this is a questionable record. I put it here because it's actually in the literature, but it's potentially not valid. So the first legitimate documented record we have is from 1933, and pay close attention to the dates because we're interested in knowing whether these fall movements, whether they stay in Oklahoma or do they keep going south. So November 29th, 1933 in Texas County, it was a female and it was probably hit by a car. Now that's a theme. A lot of these records are owls that have been hit by cars. It seems to be the only way we knew about them for many, many years. The skeleton, it was collected by Miss Eleanor Henderson, who gave it to someone at Kansas who prepared the skeleton. So we think that, you know, it was probably not in good enough condition to save the skin, and so they saved the skeleton. And that record was published the next year. In January 29th, which is a little bit late in the spring, 1957, there was one shot in Guyman, which is in Texas County, a female. In this case, again, it was still legal to, there weren't protective laws at that point for owls, and now of course they are. Some children were playing in the only tree on the school grounds in Guyman, and they found an owl, and they told someone, and they shot him and collected him. So that one was published by Sutton, who's a world-renowned ornithologist who lived here in Oklahoma for many years. He published the data, but it was collected by Davey. This is another question. Oh, that's the other thing, is if it's in kind of gray color like this, then it's a questionable record. It doesn't have any documentation, physical evidence of any kind. So this was May 10th, which is, you know, breeding again. And then Bent, who wrote the sort of the I guess now it's Birds of North America. It's everything we know about this particular species of bird. He did it in '61. And he got that information most likely from Morse, who was the egg collector. So dubious information. 1969, we've got a December 24th record and a November 11 record. This one killed by a car, and we have that specimen. And then the other one seen and not photographed. So it's grayed out, but if it gets published, then usually it's someone thought they knew what they were talking about. But we just have to be careful what we count as accepted or not. November 23rd, 1978 in Osage County, much closer to us here in northeastern Oklahoma. Sex unknown, which I don't really understand that because it was hit by a car and taken to a zoo, and it lived for 10 days. They fed it one mouse every day, and then every day it coughed up a pellet, and then it just died. So it must have had some sort of internal injuries. The specimen was collected, so they could have done some sort of dissection. So I don't really know for whatever reason. We don't know the sex. 1979, November 25th. Most of these records are in November. Oklahoma County, north of Lake Hefner Dam. This is one of my favorite stories, so I have to tell it. John Shackford, I know him. He was scouting for a Christmas bird count. So that's when you go out and try to find out where all the birds are the day before you count them, and then you go back and know where to go. And he clapped his hands to see if he could flush anything out of this thicket. And a northern saw-whet owl flew out and landed on a branch, just right there. And I've been trying to get him to teach me how to do that. And so far, no luck. But anyway, lots of photographs taken of this one, so it's well documented and has a good story to go with it. 1981, November 21, Texas. Oh, this one's good. Kids playing badminton. The birdie flew into a pine tree. Kids climbed the pine tree to get the birdie and find a different kind of birdie, the northern saw-whet owl. And so again, this one had photographs, but we don't know where they are, but people took them. 1984, December 30th, Cimarron County answered a tape call 4 different times. So again, it's a little bit faded because we don't have those, or we don't have any physical evidence. 1985, Tulsa County, hit by something because it was injured and rehabilitated and released. We don't know the sex of that one. 2001, I just found out about this one a few months ago. This is a new one. Someone came to one of my talks and I was saying, oh, we don't have very many records. And they're like, we rehabilitated one a few years ago here in Tulsa. And I was like, what? Yeah, so this is a new record. And so we decided we had to go through all the rehabbers in Oklahoma and ask them if they had handled, because they aren't, it's like there's the birding community, there's the ornithology community, and there's the rehab community, and they don't always overlap. So we're working on making sure that we haven't missed anything else in that regard. But that was right in Tulsa. Like I looked at it on Google Earth, and there's a park, and there's a lot of trees, and there's a stream. So still, it's pretty amazing. 1994, again, somebody was scouting for a Christmas bird count and located this northern saw-whet owl in a ponderosa pine tree and was photographed for several days, and that was published in the OOS Bulletin. 2002, and someone heard a northern saw-whet owl on a Christmas bird count. 2007, Tallgrass Prairie Preserve was found dead, but not collected. Oddly enough, but they had photographs, and we can't find them. So I started thinking when I was doing this research that northern saw-whet owls were a bit like Bigfoot sometimes. 2015, December 19th, Osage County, Hula Reservoir, 2 miles west of Copan Spillway, heard on a Christmas bird count. And I've talked to Don. He's the one who heard it. He's a really good birder. So here's a summary of those records. Each one of those records is one saw-whet owl per record, and they're all anecdotal reports. They were all found accidentally because the bird was hit by a car, or found by children, or found by birders that were just really sort of scouting for something else. The records lie between November 3rd and January 29th, and I just grayed out the outliers because they're undocumented and questionable. And they cover the northern half of the state from east to west. And so if I show you that on a map, this is what it looks like. So I put northern saw-whet owl pictures in the counties up to 2016, just so you can kind of see where they are. And then I put a question mark in Cherokee. Of course, we know now. We've already told you that we found saw-whet owls, but that's where we are. And then these are ecoregions of Oklahoma, and it's not terribly important that you look at them closely because there doesn't seem to be much of a pattern. They need trees to roost in, and they need mammals to eat, and other than that, it doesn't seem to matter to them, at least not looking at this small sample size. So this is a little bit of the history of northern saw-whet owl and the ornithological literature of Oklahoma, and that is that it really wasn't in there. So it's not listed at all in Birds of Oklahoma, published in 1931. It's listed as a rare visitant in 1967, as a straggler in 1999. In the date guide for Oklahoma birds, in the most recent edition, it's listed but without dates, and that means that it's just really rare. And the most recent, I'm so sad about this, the most recent Winter Bird Atlas of Oklahoma was just published, and inside on the front cover it was signed by the author, and he said, "Mia, next edition, the northern saw-whet owls will be in here." Hey. But they aren't in it because, you know, the discovery was made too late, just as that book was coming out. So, you know, we're making history, but
Not yet.
not yet. Not officially. No, we're working on publications right now. So do northern saw-whet owls move through Oklahoma in the fall on a regular basis? Was the beginning of the question that we asked. And so we applied for funding and permits, and got faculty research grant and permission from the Nature Conservancy Nickel Preserve to work on their land. It's perfect, lots of forest. Got all the banding permits, recruited a graduate student who's turned out to be a bright shining star of owl research, and also an undergraduate student who's been with the project from the very beginning. Abby Ramirez is the graduate student, and Laura Corser is the undergrad. Lots of other undergrads have been working on the project this season, so there's been a lot of people involved. So there aren't any nets. The nets are pretty hard to see, but they're actually not there in that picture. So what you're looking at is the banding lane, the net lane rather. So the poles hold the nets. They go from the ground to 9 feet high, and a very dark, fine material so that hopefully the birds, you know, can't see it very well. And at night, you know, even more so. So constant. What we did, these are Project OwlNet protocols, or standardized protocols for everyone who's working on northern saw-whet owls across North America, so that those data can be reasonably compared. Constant effort mist netting October through November. Those dates are set at different latitudes. Like we start in the middle of October, but if you're further north, you start earlier. If you're further south, which nobody's further south hardly, but you would start later. And 30 minutes after sunset until at least midnight, we have an audio lure that plays the breeding call of, or several calls actually, but I think it's the male breeding call, really loudly at the center of that line of net. So that's about 150 feet long, and then 9 feet tall from the ground up. So every hour we go check the net to see if there's an owl there, and if there's not, we go back and wait, and then go back. So we took this picture so you could see it's pretty open, and it's up on top of the Pine Ridge which turned out to cause a few problems. If there is an owl, then we remove it from the net and take it back and band it. So I don't know if I can get this to play. Can I just try?
Yeah, just try it. I need to share the video.
How do I do that?
I'll share. They'll be able to hear it, they just can't see it.
Oh, it is practice. Yeah.
Okay, then just play it.
Maybe louder.
Brooke and Eric, can you, and those joining us, can you see the YouTube video?
No. No, we cannot.
Okay, hang on just a second. Let's share the video.
Yeah.
Okay. Now can you see it, everyone?
Yes, thank you.
All right, I'm going to back that up, Mia, if you don't mind.
No, I don't like that. Although it doesn't change much.
Okay.
Now I try it. There we go. It's fine. That's pretty much it. So it's described as the toot toot call. So so that's the sound, and we play it on a predator call, I think is what it's called, which is just a really loud boom box essentially that we run continuously unless we're in the process of removing an owl from the nets. We turn it off when we go to check the nets, and then turn it back on when we leave.
Oh, it's that one, yeah.
And if it's not a very windy night, we can hear that call from the banding station. This is the Picky Tech. It's our nickname for the golf cart type thing that we ride up to check the nets in. It's enough of a distance if we actually had to hike it every hour. I don't know that we'd have time to or energy to stay up till midnight. But so it gets us up there fast, and then we come back down.
Does it not scare the owls?
Oh, we stop not too far away, but it wouldn't matter if it scared them. We hope it doesn't, but they're in the net or they're not. True. So I suppose if there was some hanging around, it might. But yeah, there are stations that have infrared remote sensing so they can see when owls go in the net. Oh, the luxury, I guess. But we check them every time. Oh, I forgot. I had the wrong thing. Are we not go? Where'd what go? Oh yeah, where is it? It's gone. Are we not?
Try clicking.
Yeah, just try clicking.
There it goes.
Oh,
Yeah.
got it. Is that the next one or did I skip
Yeah.
one? Okay. So the first owl we got on November 4th, and it's awkward taking pictures of people taking owls out of mist nets at night because you really have to hunker over the net. They have these really dense feathers, and the net wraps around their feather clumps. And I've taken a lot of small warblers out of nets, and it's so easy compared to owls. The owls just get really tangled up. So they were really good at getting them out of there. But yeah, it's quite a different experience. And just working in darkness and cold. I was every field visit, field study I've ever done was in the summertime in the daytime. So it was warm and I had light. so it was really a different thing. Do I have to click it again? So,
It's barely there. Yeah, but try clicking off to the side. I thought that worked just a minute ago. No, over the black
where?
margin. Off to the
here.
side. Yeah. Right there. That worked?
Yeah. And your clicker might work as well.
No, I'll be done.
Okay. Okay, so we got our first owl. So excited. And then I'm skipping that whole season and telling you that we captured 18 northern saw-whet owl, which obviously greatly increased the number of records for Oklahoma. We were very excited. And it also established that northern saw-whet owls move through Oklahoma in the fall. They're just really, really sneaky. They only migrate at night. They're quiet. They don't respond to playback vocally. Like they don't answer playback by calling back to it, which is the way we detect a lot of difficult species. So you essentially have to do what we're doing, which is set up a whole bunch of mist nets, play really loud calls, and check nets every hour. And it's grueling work. And so I think that no one had done that. And so we were really glad that we had, because we discovered something new. This is a photograph taken near our study site by Steve Metz. He heard that there were northern saw-whet owls in the area and knew someone who owned land nearby, and so he got this photograph. Notice the variability in the eye color. This one has almost orange eyes. And their little feathered legs to help keep them warm. They're so cute.
Those have the same coloring as some of the hawks that I've seen before.
That rusty rufus
with the dots on their chest.
Yeah, there are quite a few kinds of them. So this is obviously a daytime picture of a net, but it shows you how it's set up. There are pockets, so the bird, when it hits the net, drops into a pocket, and that's what traps it essentially. And so when we captured an owl, we noted the time we caught it, the direction it flew in from, the net number, because we had them, in a row, and then the net pocket. They were numbered from top to bottom, so that we could keep track of that. So on the left is a picture of Laura holding a northern saw-whet owl in a bag, and she's weighing it. And then on the right is Abby with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife bands. She had to crochet a little. After we dropped them like 3 times and had to put them back in order, you have to put them on the birds in order, we decided we needed a better method. And so she crocheted a string to put them on. So it worked. So you can sex northern saw-whet owls usually by weight and wing chord. So weight's obvious, but wing chord is a measurement we take of the wing. Abby's doing it right here. It's kind of from the shoulder to the tip of the wing. And then this is a picture. This is our compatriot in Arkansas who studies northern saw-whet owls, Mitchell Pruitt, and he captured a male and a female at the same time. And so you can see the male is very small, this female is very large, and that's not just an appearance thing. They weigh more, they're bigger, and it's pretty significant. There is a little bit of overlap. Small females can be the same size as large males. So there are some cases where there's enough overlap that we can't determine it. So that's pretty rare. And then, so we do the wing chord. We also do measurements of condition. So you can feel their breast muscles and see if they have a lot of muscle, or if you can feel the breastbone. They have a keeled sternum, so you can feel that bony ridge if they don't have much muscle mass. And under their little wing pits, they store fat. They also store it in other places, but you can feel how much fat they have under their wings. And that tells us if they're healthy or if they're struggling during this migratory period. And this is one of the coolest things about studying northern saw-whet owls. You can use black lights to detect the presence of porphyrins in the feathers, and we can actually age them. So we turn off the lights and we just get a UV light. We got it at Walmart or Amazon, and shine it. And if it's a hatchier bird, this is a hatchier bird, all of the wing feathers are new because they just hatched and flew south. And so they fluoresce in this really solid hot pink fashion that you see here. And the next slide shows you a comparison of hatchier, which is shown at the top. Oh, that's better.
For these.
Yeah, for these. And then second year, you've got old feathers. The porphyrins wear off, and then we have new feathers here. So that's a second year bird. And then if you have 3 age classes of feathers, here's one age class, here's another age class, and here's another age class. So if you have at least 3, all you know is it's after second year. That's all you know. Unless it was banded at a known age, you just know it's after second year. Now if it's banded, then you can just do the math. But
what is their approximate lifespan?
We think about 7 years, maybe. There was one captured recently that was 9 years old, and I think it was a record. Yeah. so not super long-lived. Their facial pattern can vary, so they can be lighter to darker. Those little white feathers look like they're spiky, like a hedgehog or something. They're actually very soft, just as soft as the other feathers. And the eye color can vary. And because of that, we take photographs of their faces. So here's a sampling of owl faces. And you can see this one's really dark compared to this one has a lot of white. We don't know what that means, but it's data. So they all get a
Glamour shot.
yeah. I was trying to think. I don't want to call it a mug shot. I was trying to avoid mug shot, but glamour shot sounds good. So let's go with that.
So there's no correlation between, like, whenever you see a dog that's old and it's starting to get gray, there's no correlation on young, old, more white, less white.
No.
Just
No, because you know, in the wild, animals rarely senesce, and so mammals stop producing pigmentation. And so our pets that live longer than they would in the wild develop that. But birds don't do that. I don't think birds do that anymore. Yeah. Well, their pigmentation can change over time. But mostly it's domestics, like domestic species too. So no, not that we know of. I mean, there may be something we don't know, so it's good to keep records. We collect feathers, which this is a feather from the breast area, kind of neck area, and so it's a contour feather, and this is the bird's band number, and that's the date, and that's for someone else. We're collaborating with someone else who's going to do the isotope analysis, and they can see where that feather was, where the bird was when that feather was produced. Yeah. Okay, so here are the results for 2016. 18 captures, 2 recaptures. One was banded in Duluth, Minnesota, and the other in Port Rowan, Ontario, in Canada, both around the Great Lakes to some degree. And as far as age classes go, most were hatch year, a few second year, and a few after second year. More females than males. Didn't see so many males. That's the same information, and I meant to delete that slide. So, but I did want to point out, this is why I left it. Those owls were all captured on 8 nights. So we went out 23 nights, and only 8 nights we got all the owls. So see, you get a lot of 0 data nights. So, but if you don't go, you don't know. That should be our new motto. If you don't go, you don't know. And this just shows, so here we are, and here's where the owls hatched. And actually, you can look at the dates. They were banded October 14th, and we captured them on 11/5.
Did you look to see how many miles are between us and those 2 locations?
I just thought it would be easy. I didn't.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, they were moving, huh? So then the 2017 season, actually, you know, the 2018 season is almost over. The 2017 season, we had some issues with in 2016 that we were worried that that net up on that Pine Ridge was pretty visible because it really caught the wind. There was no protection from wind. So on windy nights, the nets would just sort of blow out like a windsock. Owls have great vision. You know, that's not going to be good for trying to get them to go into the net. And also on really bright moonlit nights, we could see the nets. I'm sure an owl could see the nets. And so Abby came up with the idea to set up another net lane in a topographically protected habitat. And the reason we didn't choose like a dense cedar thicket is that they're not there. There aren't any dense cedar thickets nearby. And so we chose a valley that was protected on both sides, and actually on the third side, another sort of hill type thing. And so it was protected from wind, it was protected from light. And then, so now we have to check a net every 30 minutes because each one is checked every hour. I'm not going to give you the results of the difference between those two sites. For one, our sample size was rather small, but also that's going to be Abby's master's thesis, and so I'm saving that for her to present. But in 2017, we got 20 total captures. 3 of those were foreign recaptures from Eau Claire, Wisconsin, Duluth, Minnesota, and Huntsville, Arkansas. We got one of Mitchell's owls. We told him that he must not be as nice as us because he captured it and banned it, and then they decided to come back to Oklahoma instead. So, and then one local recapture. So the difference is a foreign recapture was banded somewhere else, and a local recapture, we banded it, and then we captured it again. So that year, which was last year, here's hatch year individuals, second year, and after second year. So we had just as many after second year as hatch year last year. More females again, a few males, and then we had a few unknowns that fell in between, you know, the range of we're sure about it. So far, it's been a slow year owl-wise. We've gotten 8 owls, and the season's almost over. 7 were female, and 1 was unknown. 1 hatch year bird, everybody else second year or after second year. So it was a really, really weird year so far this year in terms of normally it's hatch year females, right? So eventually we'll find out. People who are studying the breeding season up there will come up with results of how was the breeding season for the birds on their breeding territories. Did they have a bad year and there just weren't any birds that, you know, are moving? Or is it particularly mild up there and they just don't need, you know, we don't really know what's going on at this point, except that we're sad because we wanted more data points. There are greater than 54 records in Oklahoma now. I wish I could be more explicit on the number. We know how many birds we caught, but some of those other records we're still chatting about whether they count or not. And we added Cherokee County to the list of sightings. And also 2 new ecoregions because, well, we're actually in only one of them. So the Ozark Highlands. And then this is Project OwlNet. All of the banding stations are not pictured here, but I drew in the lines that are where that separate non-breeding from non-breeding scarce. And you can see that us, the Arkansas station, and the Arkansas second station, I don't even know if that's active right now, we're all in the non-breeding scarce area. And I think we're on the map now. But that's just to give you an idea. There's a really huge cluster of banding stations. And so the recaptures that we get have to be banded at a banding station, right? So the patterns that you see for migration are totally influenced by where the banding stations are located. Like if they happen to be banded and then they happen to be caught, then that's the only part of the migratory pattern that we see. And we need more southern banding stations. Before our project, less than 14 records for the entire state ever. We added 44 new records in 3 years so far, as well as new information about the timing and the demographics of their migration. As far as does wind and or lunar illumination influence capture rate, this spring, Abby will be presenting her master's thesis. And so if you guys see that advertised or are interested in finding out, then please join us in any way that you can. And this, I just wanted to, people are curious. So these are lines that go from the banding site to the stations. If I can just get this to work. So red is Oklahoma. White is the Arkansas station that's been going for a while. The other white one is also Arkansas on the eastern side of the state. And then this Missouri station has been going for years, quite a bit longer than us. And we've collaborated with all of these sites to try to tease out patterns of migration in the Ozark region because we're all in that region. So you can kind of get an idea of what that looks like. A lot of them come from the Great Lakes. So thanks Northeastern State University for funding and everything else. People worked my schedule around for owl semesters so that I didn't have really early classes, which is bad. You can't have really late classes either because you have to get out there before dark. Yeah, so it's hard to do. The Nickel Preserve, John Nickel generously donated to the project. Abby Ramirez, Laura Korsler, all the volunteers, and all of the owls. And if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I've got a question.
Oh, wow, sorry. That's okay.
Sorry. Earlier when you were talking about the nets and how tangled that they could get in the nets,
Yeah.
don't you ever worry about them getting tangled up and accidentally injuring themselves when in the nets?
Not really. It kind of immobilizes them. Now I'm wondering if I should be worried. I guess I worry more about injuring them, taking them out of the nets, and getting them untangled. They're tough, but that would be more of a concern for me because they seem like when we approach the net, they're not moving. They're just, I don't know what they're feeling, and they're probably stressed, because they're trapped. They don't seem to be flailing or anything. I don't think they really can. So the answer to your question is no, I don't worry about that, but there are other things that I worry about that haven't happened. We haven't had any injuries and no mortalities, so.
Do you have any possible plans in place in case one does get injured?
I've been on the phone with a lot of rehabbers lately, asking them if they've ever seen a northern saw-whet owl. So I'm sure that we would transport the owl to one of them. Right?
Thank you.
I have a question, Dr. Revels.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, considering once you started your research, you basically tripled the amount that had previously been seen in Oklahoma. Had it just not been studied very well, or were there studies that were unsuccessful? Or
So people have been looking for them, but not the way we did it. And so I think if someone else did the same thing that we're doing, and we hope that they will, that they probably are going to catch a bunch of owls.
oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that they've been moving. But, I guess some years, what we're also learning is temporal variation. We got 18 one year, 18 the next year, 8 so far this year, right? So maybe in those years it's a lot harder. You just have fewer off, it's just the probability is lower. So until we study more other locations, it's just so intensive. You can't drive long distances and do it. You have to do it in your own backyard, essentially. So we're hoping that some other ornithologists take on the task.
And now that you say 2018, there hasn't been quite as much, and I'm just kind of thinking out loud here, but could it have anything to do with it being a colder year than it has been the last few?
Colder where?
Oh, I don't know. I thought this year was colder than last or the year before.
Oh, well, Abby's keeping track of all the temperature. Sometimes it's colder out there at the Nickel Preserve than it is in town. And anyway, we're keeping track of wind. I forgot to tell you guys that part, but every hour, the people who go check the nets, whoever it is, checks wind, temperature, and illumination. Yeah. So we can actually track that pretty closely to what's going on. And everybody doesn't do that. That Project OwlNet protocol is simply, I think you take it at the beginning of the night and the end of the night, so it's not that detailed for everyone. But Abby needs it for her thesis. So I don't know. I haven't looked at the temperature data, but so it's been a bad year for everybody as far as owl numbers, and so potentially it was just a bad year for the owls. They may have had a reproductive bad year for reproduction. I think that story going to have to come out of the publishing, you know, when the people who are studying that share that information with us. So that tends to, but I don't know. Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, that's why we're doing this, is hopefully someday we'll have enough data to be able to tease apart those sorts of things. Like, it was a really good year, it's a really bad year. What caused that to happen?
Yeah.
You know?
Dr. Revels, I had a question.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned this year you've set up 2 separate nets.
Yes.
But the first net that you set up this year, is it in the same location as your first 2 years? So have you been setting your nets up in the same location?
The one net on the Pine Ridge has been in the same location. Well, neither of the nets has moved. There just wasn't the second net lane the first year.
Correct.
So, because if we moved it, then we would lose that whole first year's data in terms of comparing it to the valley location. So, so we couldn't move it.
Okay.
I think it would have been nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else?
I was curious, do you have a plan in place for this almost in perpetuity now that, of course, Cherokee County has made the books? Are you going to, do you hope to have in the near future continued assistance? Because of course Abby is getting her master's degree, so she's off to places unknown. Of course, Lauren's an undergraduate student, but unless she continues, so how are you going to continue? Do you have like a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan to continue this research in that particular area?
So I don't have any definite plans right now. Part of it is that it's a really difficult project to do. It's during the school year. The hours are the complete opposite of what I need in my life, in terms of sleep anyway, with a regular teaching load. But if you can, you know, if I can recruit someone who's really capable and the nickel preserve continues to be amenable and funding is available, then I'm open to the idea. I just don't have any firm plans for it. And you know, one of the things that Abby sort of tossed around, she hasn't made any decisions yet, but is sending Northern Saw Wet Owls west of here. So she may continue to work on owls. I don't really know.
That would be nice.
Oh yeah, it would. But she may do something totally different. Who knows? But yeah, I don't know. I've been thinking about it, but no decisions made yet.
I'm just figuring it would be a shame if after Abby left and Lauren graduated, if it would fall back to just you and.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, a long-term data set is a good thing to have.
Yes, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So if it works out, then that would be ideal.
Thank you. Very interesting.
Are there any other questions before we wrap up? Carrie or anyone else there in Broken Arrow?
I think we all have all of our questions answered.
I wish I had all of my questions answered. Thank you. And thanks for inviting me to speak.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We were edified and informed and educated, and we saw some cute pictures.
That's always good.
I know, right? Much cuter than cats.
I'm sorry, I can't go there.
Well, again, thank you so much, Dr. Revels, for telling us of your research, informing us of this important bit of owl research, and thank you to everyone who joined us today. Really appreciate your coming to this presentation and learning a little bit more about the northern saw-whet owl and the importance of what a little bit of faculty research money and a lot of hard work can do to impart this important bit of research that's now, as you said, in the books. So it's very important. So thank you all for coming. And I just wanted to let you know that we're firming up details for the spring semester, but we anticipate to have those details soon, so check your emails. We have other faculty lined up for January, late February, late March, and late April, and I'll have that information for you all soon. So again, thank you all for coming, and thank you, Dr. Revels, for telling us all about your research.
Thank you.